evening and welcome to another exciting show. It's all right, I'm not on my own because Dave, the prepper and survivalist, will be joining us any moment. He's waiting in the wings, so to speak. And tonight we're going to do a slightly different show in that John Hamer, the author of The Falsification of History and The Falsification of Science and Behind the Curtain and a load of other books, he will be doing the chat room, and that will release me to speak to Dave and ask questions and things like that, because the other week I got into a bit of a, excuse my language, a bit of a mucking fuddle. I got my worms in them and I'm mispronouncing things tonight. Sorry about that. But anyway, so tonight John, so you can blame it all on to John. He'll be reading the comments in the chat room, and I'll be concentrating on, you know, what Dave's saying and that. Well, what I'm going to do now, we're going to, here's Dave. He's actually on here now. Now he's wearing, it's nothing to do with the situation, shall we say. He's wearing disguise because he, for reasons, you know, for obvious reasons, he doesn't want to be shown on camera, and I can understand that. So that's the reason why. So I'll make that clear at the beginning. Now, before we even start, I've got a couple of call outs to do. First of all, Shannon in California, America, her pussycat has gone missing again. I think it's an Australian pussycat, an Aborigine one, because it does walk about occasionally. So if we can all have, because remember last time she'd lost hope, and we all did positive thoughts towards California, and it turned up. So let's do it again. So we think positive thoughts to Shannon's pussycat. So, you know, he's wandered off again. And then we've got another call out to do. Ron, one of the researchers from up north, his internet's gone up the spout. So let's all have positive thoughts to get his internet back on. And the third thing I'm going to say is I'm very optimistic about things because, and I'll be very brief on this, every communist dictatorship has gone for the middle classes. Everyone. Castro destroyed the middle class. Stalin and Mao, they all go for the middle class because they're the most dangerous people, because most of them are self-reliant, and you know, they're the, well, I think there's a rumble in the jungle and the middle class are starting to wake up. So that's all I'll say. So right, tonight, Dave, I better shut my gob and we'll go over to you, Dave. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's much appreciated. We've got a phenomenal amount of people tonight. We really have got a lot of guests. And you're going to start off by giving us a demonstration, I believe. Over to you.
Thanks to all the viewers for tuning in to Chris's excellent channel. And I'm very grateful to have been invited back again to continue trying to help people with survival knowledge, and hopefully you'll enjoy what we have to offer. And feel free to ask any questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So welcome everyone. And I'm going to show a couple of items here, which I believe are worth having for your average person who is interested in having the ability to survive when all the support networks are removed by the government and the associated nefarious individuals that they're associated with. So I'm trying to get some kind of continuity from the last time I was here to go on to this show that we're on tonight. And I said I'd show a couple of items. Now, this is an excellent item. It's a multi-fuel burning stove that will burn any kind of wood, debris, leaves, or anything. It puts itself up. There's no building to do. It's all hinged. And it can burn anything and enable you to warm yourself on a fire or boil your water to sterilize it for drinking or to cook food on the top grill plate. This generates an extreme amount of heat and has a over 99% combustion rate, making it smoke-free. Once the initial startup phase is complete, it will be smoke-free. And it has a solid plate on the bottom to stop the ashes falling out and setting fire to your environment. And this is an excellent item, quite expensive, but worth having if you're short on bushcraft knowledge and you maybe haven't got the ability or the know-how to understand the principles of digging a Dakota fire hole to have the same thing. So this folds flat to be carried in a cargo pocket and is a fantastic item. And this is the first thing that I definitely recommend for those who have limited knowledge, because that's what I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help people who might have limited knowledge. And this is a really good item, and feel free to ask any questions about that.
Well, Dave, once your gas runs out and your other fuel runs out, you're going to have to use the fuel that's around you, which is
that's correct. That's what this item is aimed at. It's aimed at being helpful in a situation where you've got no liquid alcohol fuel to use on a stove. There's no petrol. There's no meths. There's nothing to use apart from what's around you, like rubbish. If you're in an urban environment, it will burn rubbish, just the same as it burns twigs and leaves. It will burn anything, and it's an excellent item. And I highly recommend that or something similar. There are cheaper versions of it. This is from a German engineering firm called Bushcraft Essentials. I think Chris has been kind enough to drop a bit about it in the description box. I'm not sure.
That's it. It's in front of us. It's Bushbox XL combination, I believe.
That's correct. And it all folds into this pouch, which, as you can see, is flat. It'll fit in a cargo pocket when it's all folded up. And there it is. I've had this for a real long time, but it's kind of an ornament. It's a collector's item. So I just love it. I love these items because I'm a bit of a weirdo like that.
So am I. Right. So remember that. eBay, Dave. I suppose you might be able to. I don't know. I doubt it though. Or do you get it direct from there? Dave, still there? Yeah. Right. I think you're reading chat, Dave, aren't you?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that they might have, that sort of firm probably has their own website, no doubt. Whether you'd be able to get it on eBay or not, I don't know. But
they're everywhere. They're on eBay. They're on the Bushcraft Essentials website. Okay. I hasten to add these are quite an expensive item, and there are cheaper options available.
Can you cook on it? That's his answer.
You can cook on it. Yeah, it's you can fit any pan on top of it, and if you haven't got a pan, then there's the grill plate, which you can just put meat or fish or anything else straight on top of.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's one to look out for. I'll put the banner up again just in case. And we're not getting any, shall we say, commission for this or anything like that. So don't worry. No. There's nothing like that involved. So, but we, Bushcraft Essentials, Bushbox XL combination. That's brilliant. Okay, Dave. So far away.
Yeah. John was reading out the comments, and it was going to read out some questions that I might have had the opportunity to answer.
Okay. Would you like?
It was actually just starting to read the comments out, if you know what I mean.
Is he busy? Because I know he was.
No, he's here and he's reading the comments, and
would you like me to do it for a little while whilst we're waiting for Dave? Now we got here. I've looked at one here Oh yeah, this is an interesting one. This is Louise. Good job the stove doesn't need petrol. Thanks to the government's propaganda machine, the fools are panic buying again. I bet that brings in a fair bit of revenue. It also gets rid of stale petrol, which they didn't sell during the first what do we call it, last year, when people weren't using their cars. So that's something to think about. But yes, I haven't been down to the local petrol station. Luckily, I topped up, I filled up sort of recently, so I don't need much fuel. But what's it like around your way, Dave? Is it loads of silly sods queuing up outside the petrol station?
Oh yeah, there was an interesting joke on Gab earlier on that said in the UK, sperm banks are running desperately short of donors because all the wankers are queuing up for petrol.
I like that one.
I thought you'd appreciate that one, Chris. Yeah.
I haven't been near a petrol station since this started, so I can't really comment on it. Yeah, but
No.
a lot of supermarket petrol stations are closed down. Now it says here, what is it? Oh, this is an interesting one.
Would you prefer it if John was to read the comments out?
Yeah, why not? I thought he was busy. He's eating these Chinese duck wings or whatever it is. Yeah, are you right? Hi there, John. Yes, no. Is he reading the comments out, or is he reading War and Peace? I don't know. Oh, hang on. I can see the corner of John. He's just looking at the comments. You're right, John. No. Well, I'll just put this one up while she's reading them. Cotton balls rubbed in Vaseline make great fast lighters, says Jobby Dodger.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. John's resigned from the comment reading role. He's moving on with his career in a different direction. But the commenter that's just put the cotton balls rubbed in Vaseline make great fire lighters. It's absolutely correct, and it's just one of the best urban options, because you can get these cotton balls from any shop and Vaseline from any shop, and it's all dirt cheap, and they make absolutely fantastic fire lighters and flame extenders. If you can only even generate a spark from a ferrocerium rod, you can light a Vaseline impregnated cotton ball, and they're an excellent flame extender if you're lucky enough to be carrying a lighter. And because they're 100% cotton, you can create char material with these, which involves having an airtight metal container, putting the cotton balls in it, and just dumping this in your fire. This is called a next fire mentality. So you've managed to create a fire. Hypothetically, you've managed to create a fire by any means. You've got some cotton balls that are not soaked in Vaseline. You can then place these in a metal container, which is virtually airtight, in a tobacco tin or anything that doesn't let the oxygen in. You can allow these to burn inside this container in the absence of oxygen, creating char instead of ordinary cotton. It comes out black. Now, the advantage of this for the more advanced viewers is this is a piece of carbon steel. And if you get a piece of flint or chert or any other igneous rock which can be found in water courses, you can hit this with that rock, and any char that you've made out of 100% cotton, which cotton balls are, will immediately take the tiniest spark that hits it from this process, and you'll be able to blow that into an ember. And if you know what you're doing, obviously, you'll be able to create a fire that way. And this is known as a next fire mentality. Great idea to carry cotton balls and Vaseline, but I probably wouldn't recommend mashing the Vaseline into the cotton balls first. What I'd do is I'd keep them both separate, and then it gives you two options. One, you can mash the Vaseline into them and create a flame extender or an excellent fire starter, as the viewer correctly pointed out. But two, if you keep them dry, you could use them to create char material, which will operate with a minimal spark, which requires nothing to do.
Excellent. Well, actually, Cat said here, doesn't Vaseline contain petrol? I might
Contains petroleum,
yeah,
which is a chemical element of petrol, but it's not petrol.
that's right.
None of it's dangerous.
But it actually it actually came up from these nodding donkeys, and from the sort of hydraulic pumps, and the oil workers used to put it on their scars and that to heal them, and that's how they found it apparently. Now we got here when I'm out challenging myself, chaps, I use I've never heard of this Kelly kettle. Heats water and the chimney allows cooking. Do you know anything about that?
I do like Kelly kettles, but they are very bulky to carry. This is why I didn't bring my Kelly kettle. I've chosen this as a an alternative to that. I mean, your Kelly kettle, as the viewer correctly pointed out, it acts as a chimney, and it's got like a water jacket around the central chimney, and then a spout at the top. If anybody wants to Google Kelly kettle, they'll see the way it's made, and it operates by sitting on a metal bowl which has got a fuel hole, and you'd have to start a fire underneath it, and you place the Kelly kettle on top, full of a litre of water, which is inside the Kelly kettle, but the middle is a hollow chimney. And you can also get a pot stand which goes on top of the hollow chimney, so you can cook things whilst the Kelly kettle is boiling the water in the water jacket. So it's like it does two jobs at once. But in my experience, it always seems to boil the water far too quickly to enable an efficient control of cooking any kind of food on top of it. Because if it boils dry, it will split, it will be destroyed, because an extreme amount of heat is created inside the Kelly kettle chimney. And this, to me, is a disadvantage, along with the bulk that this item takes up. Yes, they are a good product, but I think, they're a bit of a gimmick, to be fair.
Oh, that's interesting. I learned something there. Something here that's a little bit is interesting to everybody, and that is Louise Wilcox says most eczema creams contain petroleum as well.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the Vaseline question, that the amount of uses, survival uses in particular, of Vaseline are just an unbelievable amount of uses available. You can use Vaseline to suffocate ticks. You can use it to avoid chafing on long distance marching. You can use it to reduce friction inside your boots. It burns when it's mashed into a wicking material like a cotton ball, as the previous viewer pointed out. Very knowledgeable viewers that we have here. And it does everything. It can lubricate bicycle chains. It burns. It does that many things. You can use it to shave with instead of soap. It does everything. It's an excellent item to carry. And if you want to cut down the bulk of carrying a big jar of Vaseline, because they tend to come in large jars, you can actually get a plastic drinking straw and stuff the Vaseline into a syringe or something similar to nozzle it in, and then you get the drinking straw, squash the end flat with a pair of hot pliers, and it seals the end. And then the other end, you'll stuff all the Vaseline in, and then use the hot pliers to seal that end, and you've created a watertight mini container which contains a tiny amount of Vaseline, but big enough to get yourself a fire started and do another number of applications with it. And it cuts down the bulk of carrying a jar full of it. Drinking straws.
I mean, that really is good. Paul Green has actually asked about the stove. Is the bushcraft stove stainless steel?
This one is the stainless steel version, but Bushcraft Essentials have actually brought a titanium version out as well, which is very, very expensive. But if you want to spoil yourself, get a titanium one. And there's also a number of sizes in this. This is the XL version, which I see as the only practicable size for this. in a survival situation, because the smaller stoves create a fire that's, that requires good fire knowledge to be sustainable, whereas you can be a bit of an amateur and you can still keep a good fire going in this because of the bulk and size of the fuel that you can fit in it.
That's interesting. We've got here, we've got food machinery, food fabrication. The one I got is talking about a Kelly stove, I believe, is only Diddy half a litre. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to the Kelly kettle. The 500ml version, which he's referring to, will boil 500 millilitres of water in seconds rather than minutes, because the water is contained in a water jacket. It is in the chimney, and the heat going up the chimney with a flow in through the fuel hole at the bottom and out through the top creates massive amounts of heat. Now, if you was in a situation where you needed to sterilize water quickly, maybe you was in an escape and evasion environment, then yeah, there's an advantage to having them. But the amount of bulk that they take up, even for a 500ml one, is still big, with it not being a folding item. It's like carrying a flower vase around with you.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can see that. I don't know if we're going off the topic at the moment, but there's an interesting one here by Jobby Dodger. Have you tried hammock camping? I found it very uncomfortable, but easy way to camp without carrying a tent.
Yeah, I mean, hammock camping is a religious level argument among the bushcraft community. It's a bit like the stove argument. It's worse than religion, hammock versus tents. Everybody has their own favourite, and there's heated arguments about it in the bushcraft community. And yeah, hammocks are brilliant from a number of standpoints. Firstly, if you can make a fire, you can create hot rocks with if you find igneous rocks around, which are not sandstone, obviously, because it explodes in fires, but lumps of granite and other rocks which won't explode. You can put them in a fire and they heat up to a massive extent, and then you can place them in rows underneath your hammock, get in your hammock, and you've got the heat rising without any flames under there. I'm saying you put hot rocks that you've heated up in your fire or around your fire under the hammock, and you've got underfloor heating, which is a massive advantage if you're hammock camping in a cold climate, because hammocks are notorious for creating bad wind chill due to convection, with the wind blowing underneath them while you're laid in them. Now, you can get under quilts for these hammocks, or you can put a closed foam cell camping mat inside the hammock. This helps, up to a certain extent. And hammocks are great because you don't have to find even ground. You can even string them up across a swamp, a muddy area where you'd never want to put a tent. So there's a lot of advantages, but as the viewer quite rightly pointed out, you are often laid there like a banana. So you're in a bendy shape, which is not very good on your spine if you're sleeping in there all night. Exceptions to this rule being the bridge hammocks, which are strung with a rod that goes through the ends in a parallel configuration, and the hammock then becomes a flat lay. They can lay flat in a bridge hammock. So yeah, various ranges of hammocks can be made excellent and are a good option instead of carrying a tent. They tend to be much lighter, and they also double as a seat to carry out various camp tasks, foot hygiene in particular. You have to look after your feet. If you can sit there in something that's supporting you, you can tend to any foot issues whilst you're sat on the hammock. And this is another advantage over tents. So yeah, I do like hammocks, and I think they're absolutely excellent as long as you know what you're doing with them. If you don't know your knots properly and things like that, they can be a bit of a problem, a bit problematic. As in falling onto the floor. You should never, for anybody who hasn't done it much, don't ever string it up so that your body is more than 18 inches off the ground, in case you do fall off the hanging part, the knot fails or something, then you won't sustain a serious injury by falling that like you would have done if you'd have hung it 3 foot up.
That is actually a good safety note, that one is, isn't it, Dave? I mean, what do you feel about this tent within a tent? This is what the Canadians do. I've I only heard of it a couple of months ago. I've never really heard of it before, where they put a tent up and then have a smaller tent inside it. And
yeah, all it is about creating an air barrier between you as the occupant and the severe cold in the Canadian winter. I can see the merits of this in Canada or Russia or anywhere else that has a severe winter, where it's kind of -30, -40, things like that. Air is the ultimate insulative barrier. If you can have a tent within a tent, and anything you can do to eat any of them portions of air will create a progressively more efficient barrier between you and the cold. Thermal regulation is a massive subject in itself. And I mean, a lot of people are bored by talking about thermal regulation, but it's a core principle of survival. If you can keep your body temperature normal with the minimum of effort, burning the minimal amount of calories, then you're winning. So yeah, a tent within a tent or a container within a container, any variation thereof will be fantastic.
And
just to create the largest number of air barriers that you can get between you and the cold, the better. This is why these sleeping bags are made with the lining, stuffing's made out of hollow fibre, because it creates millions of little air barriers. That's the core principle of sleeping bag design.
That's interesting. We've got here Dav and Bar has said, I think you're talking about the cooker here. The one I have also fits a meth burner. That's interesting.
This has the. I was pointing out off air to Chris. This has got the trivets on the back, which are here, and these come off, and you remove the grill plate and put them across, or you can put them through these slots here. They're going through these slots. And you can put them at any height you want to facilitate using a meth burner if you prefer to use a clean burning fuel and you're not in a dire straight situation. And they work fantastic.
So he says, if you are burning wood, where does the smoke go when it comes out the side?
On the initial startup with something like this, you get a small amount of smoke, which is largely condensation, but some of it is carbonizing smoke. I fully admit that. But once the flames are established in this, because of the high degree of ventilation from the bottom as well as the side, you get an extremely efficient combustion rate, upwards of 99% combustion. And once it's up and running within minutes or a minute, a short amount of time, depending on how damp the wood is that you put in. There's a number of variables, but it's basically a virtually or completely smokeless stove once it's running.
That's the problem in this country. I mean, most of the time it's a damp environment, and you know, finding tinder or anything that is reasonably dry, and I suppose that's where the cotton wool balls come in. It would. Yeah,
well, if you are dependent on a fire, if you're in a kind of a coldish British winter, say, was it? Because all my ideas are based and aimed at British people who are dealing with our mild winters, because it's always damp here, right? Once you've got your initial fire going, all your wood that you're gathering wants to be stacked around it in order to benefit from the heat that's coming off the stove, right? Thereby drying it out before you use it as fuel. So you're using your next fire mentality, so as that you're drying your wood out, drying your fuel out with your current fire, whether it's in a stove like this or whether you've just got a campfire, or whether you're a bit more advanced and you've dug a Dakota fire hole. You can dry your future fuel out with the current fire, and it's about forward planning, especially in a damp environment. Any environment where your wood is damp or your tinder might be damp, you can use this fire that you've managed to get to ensure that your next fire is 1,000,000% easier to get going. And obviously it's a knock-on effect. When you get your second fire going, you plan for the third fire. It's called next fire mentality.
That's good to know. There's an interesting one here. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, wrong one here. Barry Wickings has said, when we camped out in cold climates, we wore stringed vests. You don't see them around so much now, and silk tops over them to create air pockets.
Yeah, that's correct. That's just a more of an next to body version of what you was referring to, Chris, with a tent within a tent. What you're doing is being part of one of the 5 C's of survival is cover. That can be clothing, right? And if you're using a string vest with a lot of air pockets in it, you can put something that's not as air permeable over the top of it, like silk or nylon. If you're not rich, you can just use nylon. And this will trap lots of air in small pockets. And the viewer correctly pointed out that this works excellent for on-person heat regulation, thermal regulation within your clothing environment. And it's just like a scaled-down version of putting a tent within a tent. You're using your body heat to its biggest advantage by trapping it all and ensuring that you don't become a victim of convection from the air blowing around you or conduction if you're laid on the floor. You should always not be laid on the floor because the conduction will suck the heat out of you into the cold earth. Even in summer, that can happen. So you should always have some kind of insulative material between you and the floor.
I've learnt the hard way from that. But there's some interesting ones here. Sean has said here, if it's really wet, get kindling from dead wood that's still above ground to get going. Well, the wood that cracks.
Yeah, another example of how knowledgeable our viewers actually are. Yeah. There's some very knowledgeable viewers here, and they're coming up with some excellent points. And he is correct. If you've got dead fallen wood that's maybe fallen on a previously dead tree, and therefore most of it's suspended up from the ground, that wood won't soak up ground damp, and it becomes dead standing wood or dead fallen wood. And that is the most excellent starting point you can have to minimize the amount of effort and time it takes to dry out that wood for fuel, or it might even be dry enough to start with already. And if you can't ever find anything like this, you can just get your wet log, maybe this thick or whatever, and then split it with your knife or your axe or whatever you've got, and split the outside damp wood off until you get to the core wood, which is dry even in rainy conditions. And then you can shave your core dry wood off into tinder shavings in a fire stick manner, a feather stick manner, and use it like that. You can always access dry wood with a little bit of knowledge and application of that knowledge.
That's incredible. We've got here Barry Wickings has said, in America, YouTube are censoring hunting and fishing channels. They don't want people to gain knowledge.
Yeah, this is correct. This is a part of the reason why I've decided that I'm willing to go on Chris's excellent channel and try and help people with what bit of knowledge I've got. And it's kind of practical knowledge that's aimed at people who might not be experts or all like that. And that's the reason I'm here, because I think there's an active agenda going on here to try and limit people's knowledge and prevent them gaining new knowledge, so that they become dependent on things provided by the government and the corporatocracy which we are currently faced with.
I agree with you, because when I went to the Sunday stand in the parks, you were the main topic of conversation, especially when you talk about that book, Food for Free. People were getting it left, right and centre. And now the shamargs, I think the sales rate of shamargs have gone through the roof. Thanks to you.
It's a very, very useful item, being 100% cotton. As I was alluding to earlier when the other very knowledgeable viewer was pointing out cotton balls and Vaseline. This is made out of 100% cotton. You can cut a square of this off and use a tin to make it into char material. When it goes black, after it's cooled down, obviously, you open the tin, it'll take the merest spark, probably the first spark that comes off hitting this with a piece of chert or flint or any other igneous rock. This will serve as perfect char cloth. because it's 100% cotton. That's the key.
It's good quality as well. We got here Sean Hamer said there will be drone sweeping any open areas and dragging the infection risk suspects off to facilities. Hence, derelict buildings are the real cover in urban Britain. That's a very good point, Sean. That's a very good point.
That's an excellent point, Sean. Brilliant point by Sean there. I'd like to add to that with an item that I actually was showing Chris last week. I can't remember whether we showed it to the viewers or not, but it was a mylar on the inside and camouflage on the outside, 4'6" wide bivvy bag. And if you was in a derelict building, this will ensure that any thermal cameras that the sweeping drones would have on them wouldn't be able to detect that there's a living human inside that building. So yeah, brilliant idea. Great, get in a derelict building and thermally camouflage yourself.
Well, the two topics were that bivvy bag and also that straw. People are trying to get hold of that straw, and I think
that's from a firm called Drink Safe Systems UK.
Shall I repeat that? Drink Safe
Straw is from a firm called Drink Safe Systems UK.
Okay.
I've spoke to the owner on a number of occasions because when I first got the information about his products, I realised that there was better than anything else that was on offer at the time. Other firms have brought equally good equipment out since, namely the Grail GeoPress and things, which obviously I've got one. And but the straw, what I like about the Drink Safe System straw is it's a small pocket-sized item that instantly provides over 600 litres of fresh water from any river or lake. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Precisely. And you can't go down with something nasty like, what water carries. Around here, it's Vals disease.
Yeah, that's correct.
Rat's pee, basically. Yeah, so that is something.
But important with if anybody wants to get this straw, they can go and get it, from anywhere they want. But I think the Drink Safe Systems one far outperforms any other. But if you get one, don't forget your cotton shemag, wrap it round the end, and then suck it through that, because this removes all the turbidity and can increase your filter life by up to 10 times.
Good.
That creates 6,000. That creates 6,000 litres of drinking water instead of 600, just by pre-filtering it through some cotton.
That's a very good point. That's brilliant. Thanks, Dave. We got here Sean Hamer again. I doubt lighting fires anywhere will be permitted after the COP26 hammer falls. That's the Agenda 2030, I guess you're talking about there.
Yeah, it's a good point, Sean, but the key word in your sentence there is permitted. For something not to be permitted, then you've got to have the manpower to enforce it. And I'll tell you now, they haven't got that manpower. There isn't enough police, there isn't enough military. Not a chance.
That's right. Well, I think as a late, great Dave Starbuck said, there's more, they've got more recruits in the Salvation Army than they have in the British Army.
Yeah, if they want to make something, if they want to make something not permitted, then you've got to have the logistical wherewithal to enforce that lack of permission, and they haven't got it. It's all smoke and mirrors. Anybody who's got the knowledge to be able to keep themselves alive with the essentials of food, water, shelter, heat, and light, when the government and the corporatocracy that it funds takes all the support away, those are the people that are going to inherit the earth.
Well, you're spot on. And I know about 20 years ago, I used to work with a chap who, him and his wife, lived on a plot of land in a caravan. And they kept that caravan camouflaged. And they reckon the winter was the worst time when the leaves come off the trees, because the council would fly over to see if anybody's living illegally. But he got away with it because he knew all the wrinkles. And they'd lived there for years in this caravan.
Yes, a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
But now you'll know that the government's recently brought out the the Justice, Crime and Sentencing Bill, which criminalises anybody living a, quote, nomadic lifestyle and enables them to impound any vehicles, whether these vehicles are powered vehicles or not. So a caravan is classed as a vehicle in this new legislation, and they're trying to criminalise what used to be a civil matter of trespass by making it, well, they have actually made it a criminal offence. So if you're on property without the property owner's permission, any vehicles that you've got there can be took away by the police and never returned. They'll destroy them vehicles.
Well, he bought this plot of land. There's a little woodland that he had.
Yeah. Well, then you were intimated that the guy you're referring to knew all the wrinkles and giggles, and he obviously did, because if you buy your own plot of land and you put a caravan on it, right, you've then failed to apply for a change of use application for that land to turn it from fallow land or woodland into land where you can have a residence on there. There's a number of ways around that. You can apply for planning permission to build a bird viewing hide, and whilst you are building the bird filming hide for ornithologists, say, you're allowed to have accommodation on that land to supervise your building whilst you're building it. And if you take 10 years to build it, well, that's your business. And another wrinkle around living in a caravan on your own land, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford to buy your own land, is if you move it so many yards every 28 days, it's not counted as being there consistently. You can just move it off your land for a few days and then back on again. There's people like your friend who know all these rules, and I'm one of them. And this is another string to your fiddle.
That's right. I had long conversations with him, and it's a long story. I won't go into it now, but I like bringing it on a future program. It is fascinating. What, you know, I think it's 30 days or something, but in those days, I'm going back about 20 odd years. But he, as I say, he knew all the wrinkles, and he said he lived a lovely life, him and his wife in the caravan. He said,
power to his elbow, isn't it?
Peace and quiet. It's just lovely, you know. But Hachi has said here, let's be honest, who would have thought 20 years ago we'd be talking like this today? He's spot on. Yes. Mind you, I've been
correct, yeah,
for a long time. I think we both have. I think you must have been planning most of your life, haven't you, Dave?
17 years.
That is a long time. Yes.
That's how long I've been learning survival skills and prepping and things.
Yes.
You know, there's obviously blokes who know a lot more than me, but there's a lot of blokes who know a lot less than me. But I'm here trying to help people who might know less than me, and I think that's the right thing to do. So that's why I'm here.
There's a very good one here. Have we got here? Paul Green. Apart from Dave's excellent practical knowledge, Dave's excellent practical knowledge, I think you have to be mentally prepared. Correct there. You may have to do things that would normally repulse you. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I worked in an abattoir for 13 years.
Yes.
Nothing repulses me. The viewer correctly points out that things may repulse various individuals. It's all going to come down to what you're willing to do. And, you know, as I said, I worked in an abattoir as a slaughterman and butcher for 12 years. And meat's meat. I don't care how many legs it's got.
Well, I think also, I mean, what we're looking at, I mean, the title of this program, we're actually looking at beyond, because those of us that are prepared, I think we've got to go through the real tough to find a sort of a newfound freedom, because I strongly believe that it might be a bit like Survivors, that TV program, where groups of you who know all the wrinkles and get around things will start off as sort of like a community on their own and find newfound freedom that we never thought possible, and just turn our back on government, because people are already turning their back on government and realizing that government is their biggest enemy, and it always has been.
That's correct.
This is why I'm saying there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this is, you know, it's a bit like a puppy dog that's been kicked down and kicked down and kicked down. Eventually it'll bite back and it'll find its freedom if it's lucky. And I think this is what we've got to do, because as I was going to say at the beginning of this program, The Brits always fight their best with their backs against the wall. Look at Agincourt. We were outnumbered 3-1, and the odds were totally stacked against the British. But we won. How did we win? Because we're bloody minded, and we just stuck it out. And the bowmen on Agincourt, you see the film Henry V, and you see them firing these arrows, and they're going long into the distance. Well, they've actually scientifically found out that's wrong. They had to pierce armor. The French knights had to be 60 feet away, almost on them. 60 feet. Now that takes guts to hold the line at 60 foot with someone charging towards you. And when you look at other instances throughout history, the Brits have always, when they've got their back to the wall, found a new type of freedom. And this is the
that's an excellent point, Chris, because when I saw your title earlier on, the light at the you was alluding to the light at the end of the tunnel and an unexpected hope of freedom and happiness. I was instantly drawn for some reason to refer to the horrendous individual and worldwide parasite, Mr. Klaus Schwab. You will own nothing and be happy, right? Now, the light at the end of the tunnel is in the mind, as far as I can see, because currently we live in a materialistic world where everybody likes their house, they all like their car, they want a better car, they like mowing their lawn, they want a better lawnmower than next door's, etc. It's materialism, right? But if you can end up where you're happy with your ability to provide food, water, shelter, heat, and light without the help of these tyrants, right, you'll find happiness. And ironically, Klaus Schwab will be absolutely correct, because we will own nothing apart from the skills that are in here, and we will be happy because we're able to provide everything we need without these horrible clowns.
You've got a good point. And also, what people don't realise is that when Wilberforce, we say he ended slavery. That's debatable. But shall we say officially he ended slavery? Unemployment started, because before then, if you go back to the 18th century, unemployment didn't exist, because in a village people had their skills. So if you needed a farrier, there was a farrier.
That's right.
Repair your house, you knew it's a bloke.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, and that's what I think it's going to come back to, because when you think about it, you have unemployment, have to sign off for unemployment benefit, and it's a load of bureaucracy and things like that. And really, anything to do with the establishment, it's always efficient when they're, for instance, the Inland Revenue are very efficient at gathering people's money. But when it comes to other things, it's very inefficient when it starts giving things back, which it doesn't really do very easily. So it works for itself. And I think we will start working for ourselves and saying, excuse my language, sod government. And I think we're showing now how outmoded government is. They're just a pain in the arse. They're a waste of time. And they always have been, Now,
I was wondering if we was going to look at answering some questions from the viewers, if that's all right with you.
Right. So what we got here, this is interesting what Paul Green says. Let's be honest, what we're talking about has been promoted in film and TV for a long time. Yes, but they always show you a situation without government turns to anarchy. Not necessarily. Sometimes,
good point. Yeah,
turns to the best. Right. This is another good point. This is from Barry Wickings. People who have not prepared for the worst scenarios will be our worst enemies when hunger and thirst kicks in. So
that's a very good point by Barry. But there's a silver lining in that, because the unprepared may be dangerous, and I accept that they are, but the prepared will be able to wait the situation out until these unprepared have done their best to take or steal whatever they're going to take from their neighbours, etc., and then they'll become far less dangerous, and they'll become extremely fatigued, and they'll be then become food.
That's a sad fact, but unfortunately, that has happened in history, isn't it?
That's correct. We learn from history.
Yeah.
Yeah. The unprepared become food.
Yeah. And let's face it, I think we're a little bit too comfortable at the moment. You know, for example, there's threat of not be able to get food, not going out to get toilet rolls. I mean, last year people were fighting each other for toilet rolls. Well, you can
ridiculous.
live without toilet rolls. And I understand people needing fuel to get to work. I can understand that, and I can understand, you know, the desperation in that point of view. But the government, I think, are doing it all the time. That they're just playing us like puppets on a string. You know?
There's a very, very interesting question by Haley B here, who's a viewer. What other survival tools do you have to show us, Dave? I've shown the collapsible stove, and I'm hoping that Haley was here when we showed the carbon steel fire striker, which I've still got somewhere. Here it is.
Don't worry, I know Haley. So
I'm hoping that Haley was here when we was talking about that. I did show a number of items on the last episode, but I've got plenty of items to show. But
far away.
I'm going to obviously I'll have to hand the camera sideways so that I can go and collect these items, which are not to hand at the moment. So I don't know if you want John to say a few words, or you just want to wait while I get more.
I'll ask you about what's happening, because you're supposed to be doing the chat room, but I
think
he's collapsed on his Chinese food, and he or something.
He resigned in protest at you doing his job.
Oh, that's what it is. Well, go back to your pork balls.
What it was, I kept trying to tell you what was in chat, and you couldn't hear me, and you kept talking over the top of me, so I just said, "Oh, sod it, I'm going."
I'm rude.
The other thing was,
sorry.
The other thing was, I know you couldn't, and the other thing was that I've got no control over what's displayed on the screen. I can't make the chat display on the screen like you can. So it was like an uphill battle. So I gave up in the end. Sorry.
Do you think we made a bit of a cock up tonight? At least it's an experiment that didn't work, and it.
Yeah, I know it wasn't ideal, was it? But yeah.
Well, we ticked that one off, haven't we? We've given it a try. The only thing is, two computers or two screens or something. I don't know.
Well, no, it's not that. It's the fact that, you know, if I start reading the chat stuff out, I can't make it display on the screen. So you still have to react to me doing it. So it's almost pointless me doing it.
Well,
does that make sense?
I had to be a bit rude with Dave. He didn't realise it, but as I'm a bloke, I can't multifunction. So I had to read a bit of the.
I know it's hard, but
the chat, and then back again. But we've got some great people in chat tonight. We really
right.
Have. But it's we got here. Oh, hang on, Kate has just hello, John.
Hello, Kat.
And, no, we really got some fantastic questions, and I feel very guilty for not reading all the questions out. There must be some absolute stupid ones in there which I've missed, so I do apologise. But we'll have to work something out, because
I know. Is there any way that you can give me the ability to actually make the chat display, or is it only like the host that can do that? I don't understand how the whole thing works.
I'll tell you what I can do. I can actually show it on the screen like this.
Well, no, but that's what we do anyway, isn't it? I mean, the problem is that you know, for me to read out the chat and not have the ability to make that display, then I've got to involve you anyway. So it's if you understand what I'm saying, it's absolutely.
I know what you mean. Yeah, because I was going to try and find it as you was reading it out and tap it on. I'm going to do a bit of head scratching on that, John. I think we've learned a lot from this tonight.
Yeah.
And yes, we'll actually, you know, we'll work something out for the next program, because I can't wait for Sunday staying in the park, because Dave will be the talk of the park. I know that, because he was last time.
Don't tell him that. He'll get big-headed.
Loads of books. There we got Shamargs. You know.
Yeah. See, Sean Hamer has just referred to me as Dad. How dare you? Older brother, please.
I like what Dan MC Mac has said. So it's kill or be killed. Unfortunately, it will be. We left on Haley B saying, "What other survival tools do you have to show us, Dave?" There's a
Over to
dirty
you,
joke
Dave.
there, but I won't crack it. I promise.
Right, Dave's back. I've collected some tools. I've obviously already shown the folding stove and the fire steel. Here is a self-enclosed pocket survival fishing kit. This contains everything you need to harvest fish in the wild. If you can find a water source which has fish in, which is not hard to do. Excellent item to carry, and as you can see, it's pocket sized. Could definitely save your life from a food point of view. Lots of cordage. This will be 550 paracord, which has 7 strands inside, any of which can be used for smaller cordage tasks. You can use them for sewing or fishing line. The actual thing itself is an alleged breaking strain of 550 pounds, but every time you put a knot in it, you half that. So this shouldn't be used to do any mountaineering. Oh, hang on, I don't weigh 550 pounds. I can abseil with this. No, you'll just die. So this is for putting tarps up and making traps and using as a string for a bow drill fire. If you get really stuck for fire and have to use a bow drill and you know how to do it. Cordage is one of the most difficult things to recreate in the wild. Therefore, it qualifies as one of the 5 C's of survival, which we was discussing on the last episode. A roll of gorilla tape, right? This has numerous uses. A lot of uses. It can be used for a wound closure. It's a flame extender. It's highly flammable. If you put a flame to it, it will. Well, it's superior to cotton balls and Vaseline as a flame extender, but it's only useful as a tinder if you scrape the shiny surface up into like fibers before showering it with sparks. You have to shave it down into the adhesive layer in order to make it flammable enough to start with a spark. But the number of uses for gorilla tape is absolutely endless. It works for lots of things. You can make anything out of it. It's obviously useful for repairing tarps, repairing clothing, repairing footwear. It can be used as anti-blister pads for feet which get hot spots while you're marching a long way. You can use it to prevent blisters, etc., etc., etc. It just goes on and on and on. Gorilla tape. Some more specific items. This is quite an interesting item. This is a set of pace counting beads. Now, it's quite an individualistic item because these beads slide along like an abacus. It's like carrying your own abacus. You slide them along, and then each bead equals 100 meters. So when you've traveled 100 meters, you'll slide a bead along. So if you're going in a specific direction, you're going to know how far you've traveled without any electronics. Pace counting beads, and this does any distance because it's got a small group of beads at this end and then a bead at that end. So you can, when you've done 1,000 meters, you move one of the next group of beads up like that, and there's a space between them, so you can, walk 10,000 miles. If unfortunately, there's been a bit of a mishap with some liquid spillage here.
Oh dear.
That's currently being attended to by John while I carry on talking. Right. This is a neck-mounted compass, which you can have hung around your neck. Now, it's the kind of compass that's only really useful for gross direction finding, north, northeast, north, south, east, and west. It's not really a bearing function on it, and you'd have a whistle joined on with that in case you was in a position where you had to attract attention. So the paste beads compass and whistle would all hang around your neck on the cordage that's supplied. And I've made the cordage long enough and with removable knots in, so that in a pinch, if you had to remove all the paste beads and everything else off the cordage, this cordage is long enough to use on a bow drill fire. So it's a multi-use item which retains multiple functions, and it has a number of tools on it which are all extremely useful. That's a few tools that we've discussed now since Haley asked for them, and obviously I've got the Sunto MC2 Global Compass, which is in its own holder. Now I've already shown one compass, but this is a very advanced piece of equipment here. I keep it well protected because they're expensive items and things, and this is calibrated to work anywhere in the world, northern or southern alleged hemispheres included, and it has a sighting mirror, and you can actually plot azimuths and in and out directions and navigate around obstacles, and you can do macro navigation, micro navigation, or huge gross navigation with this, and it's a fantastic thing. The mirror is obviously multifunctional and can be used as a signalling device or to look for parasites that might be on your body in difficult to see places, looking around corners for hazards, you name it, it does it. The Sunto MC2 Global Compass, it's got a magnifying glass on, so you can start fires with it in the sun. This is a really excellent multi-use tool to have. Expensive, but worth having. And then the container. This is a stainless steel container with the butterfly handles on the side, enabling you to boil water or cook things. And the bucket handle on top enables you to hang it over a fire to do extended cooking or boil water while you're not attending it. You can manufacture a tripod, use some of your cordage to hang it up on the tripod. You've got a cooking pot. This is a really heavy duty one from the Bushcraft store. It's a TBS version. TBS stands for the Bushcraft store. Again, I'm not on commission or anything like that, but these are absolutely excellent items. The thickness and the strength of this item, you can't squash it. It's a very, very strongly built thing, and it represents one of the 5 C's of survival, which is container. This is invaluable, virtually impossible to create in the wild. A container which you can boil water in.
I got you.
Because if you haven't got a container, you're stuck with maybe a piece of, if you had a piece of tin foil, you can dig a divot, you can dig a hole and use your square foot of tin foil, which would be in your kit. If you built a kit, you'd have a square of tin foil. You'd line the hole in the soil with the tin foil, fill it with dirty water. You'd heat pebbles up to an extremely high temperature in your fire, and then you'd use some sticks or anything that you can grab that doesn't burn your hands to move the pebbles into the divot full of water, thereby boiling the water without having to carry a container. But trust me, a container is a fantastic item to carry, and you don't want to be without this. It requires a lot of knowledge and skill to use the tinfoil divot boiling technique, and if there's any holes in your tinfoil, you've got big problems because you can't boil your water unless you actually repair the backside of it with your duct tape, which is doable as long as this is not placed with any of the hot rocks just at the other side of the tinfoil with it, because it will melt. Having said that, if it does melt, it will still seal the hole in the tinfoil if you're stuck without a container. But I'd always recommend having a container. It's well worth having, and get one. It's a no-brainer.
Bushcraft.
It's a shop called the Bushcraft Store. They do some excellent items. I wouldn't recommend their knives because they've had bad reviews from far more experienced survivalists than me. the spine of the knife that the bushcraft store do is too wide to make it an efficient cutting implement. There's too much of a V, and it's just useless. It's called the bushcraft bushcraft steel, store TBS Boar bushcraft knife, and it looks like the Ray Mears knife, but it's nothing like it. It's made out of decent material, but the blade geometry is all wrong, and I'd go with the Mora all day long. I demonstrated the Mora on the last occasion. You was raving about how good it was, and they are good and they are excellent value. Again, this has attracted a lot of fans, the food for free, but that's, I mean, Haley asked us to demonstrate more tools. This is a tool. It's a book, yeah, but the knowledge you get from it becomes an efficient tool. So it's still a tool, and you know, the edges are obviously made out of paper. Inside the book, all the pages have a border around that's got no writing on. So in a horrendous situation, you could cut the edges off the paper, soak them with the Vaseline that another very knowledgeable viewer referred to earlier on, and you've got an excellent flame extender, and there's 300 of them in there. So this is, again, a multi-use item, and because I've got a waterproof cover on it here, this plastic, this is also a flame extender. If you have to, this will burn, and it will burn in the wet. So everything that I carry is a multi-use item, and it carries its own redundancy.
It's a brilliant book.
This is another item which I absolutely swear by. It's soaked at the moment because something's been spilt on it, but this is a pocket knife sharpener. Now it has a tungsten V at the top, and then a ceramic V at the bottom, so you can take the rough burrs off your knife in this end, turn it over and sharpen it to a razor sharp blade at this side. Knife sharpener might seem like it sounds easy to recreate in the wild, but to do it properly and end up with a really sharp usable knife, for the amount that this weighs, which is next to nothing, and the room that it takes up, which is next to nothing, this is well worth having in the dirt cheap, and get one. Because you can sharpen a blank. If you found a spoon with an handle on it, you can sharpen it into a blade with this. So this is an excellent urban survival tool. It'll sharpen anything that will fit in this gap.
Is there a name? Is there a special? Is there a trade name for that particular one?
Well, this one's just. They're all cheap. There's no. This is a Autotech one from TK Maxx. It's just a dirt cheap item.
Cheap, yeah.
You know, dirt cheap. Absolutely very, very difficult to recreate in the wild. So should, in my view, be carried as one of the 5 C's of survival, as an extension to the term cutting. It doesn't cut anything, but it enables you to cut things.
Gotcha. Okay, so TK Maxx, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you can get all these things dirt cheap from various standpoints. And this is might look suspect, but I can assure you it's not. If the police found that on you, they'd probably be raving, got you for something horrendous, but it's not. What it is dehydrated paraffin, and this is in a plastic wrapper. And if you introduce a flame to the edge of this, there's enough fuel in here to boil 300 millilitres of water in one of your military collapsible stoves, or on top of a brick or anything, or it just uses a fire starter. Yeah, these are Fire Dragon fire starters from Sainsbury's home base, and they're barbecue lighters. And you get 180 of them for £5.
Wow.
That's a fantastic item. Pocket size, really thin, doesn't take up any room, weighs nothing, worth having.
That's
these bags. This is a plastic bag with a roll top wire closure, and it holds 1 litre, and I've got 5 of them here, and they'll stand up when you half fill them. So if you can get a bit of water in them, they then stand up, and you could use them to drip filtered water in out of a millbank bag or something similar. And when you've closed this up, rolled it down and wound the wire together, you can actually stand on that and it won't let the water out. Very, very strong bag. These are cheap. These are just a couple of quid. So well worth having. That this is another redundancy item in the container series of the 5 C's of survival. This is a container, so is that. So worth having.
Because I haven't seen those in places like Tesco's and that. I don't know.
No, I ordered this from a medical supply outlet. And, it's here, Whirlpack stand-up bag, it's called. I'll just try and get it closer to the camera without wetting John's computer. Whirlpack stand-up bag. Right, massively strong, holds a litre, no-brainer, get one.
That's interesting. What's your getting the other one?
Then this, we've already shown this on a previous episode, but this is the Drink Safe Systems water straw, which
that's it.
People would seem to want to see more of. So there it is.
Drink Safe is the place to contact. Then the
Drink Safe Systems UK. Here it is. Pocket size. If you pre-filter it with your shamag or any other cotton material, so that you'll undo that and then put a bag over it to suck your water up. This normally does 600 litres before it has to be replaced. If you pre-filter it, it'll do 6,000. Again, wow. This is a must-have item in my view. And then ridiculously, we might think it's ridiculous, but these are 3 for £1 at Poundland. This is just a lighter. This is the #1 go-to fire starter for anybody who knows what they're doing. Yes, you want all the primitive fire backup skills if you can learn them. But as I've said since I first came on here, I'm aiming this information at people who might not have massive loads of survival skills. This is what you want to be carrying, right? And get the zigzag ones because they've got a torch in the end. So yeah, 3 for £1.
Bloody
How can it get any better than that? You've got combustion, and candling in one item for 33p.
That's super value, isn't it?
I mean, it seems ridiculous, you know, for an experienced survivalist to be talking about pound shop lighters, but this is the go-to #1 choice for the hardest core survivalists that there is. And this is what they go to first. Yes, they can use all the other methods. You know, they can start. I mean, I can start a fire with nothing but a knife. It's as simple as that. But I'd rather just press a button.
Yeah, I can see your point.
Practical.
Yeah.
Get one. Yeah. So I hope that's made Ailey happy with saying, have you got any other survival items to show? And I've shown a few. I've got lots more, obviously, but we haven't got an unlimited 12-hour documentary to run. So
1 hour 13. There's a few questions in. Well, what we got here is Town Crier has actually corrected me here. When I mentioned about Agincourt, he said it was the English at the Battle of Agincourt, as British didn't exist until 1706.
England.
Sorry, Town Crier. Will you allow me along next Sunday?
Yeah, the great John Hamer said correct.
Yes. So what do you think, John? I'm going to get a kick in the ghoulies on Sunday when I see. The mistake. Yes, it was English. Yes. I didn't realise it. Yes, I didn't realise it. Yes, you're right. Yes, and we got here. This is an interesting one from John Basingloan. Gorilla tape is absolutely amazing. I didn't know that. I always use electrical tape for things, but Gorilla tape. I was just telling my daughter it is a must to carry in our vehicles. We have a kit in all our trucks and cars, including waterproof matches, water, space blankets. That's interesting. So, Gorilla tape. That's yes.
Well, it is a multi-use item. Also, I don't know if anybody's been looking into which container to get and things, and about boiling water for survival purposes, but there's a lot of myths about, and one of them is lids. Now, all these containers come with lids. This is the lid for the TBS thing. It turns it into a little cooking pot. Now, a lot of survivalists, quite experienced survivalists as well, have erroneously been telling people that if you put a lid on a container when you're boiling your water, right, then it will cut down the amount of time it takes to boil due to the steam not being able to get out. This is horse shit, right? The water will boil in exactly the same time with no lid on, right, as it will with a lid on. The advantage of having a lid on it is you will not lose portions of your drinking water due to evaporation, because it will hit the lid and then recondense back down, saving you amount of water. But it will not cut down the amount of time it takes to boil a given amount of water. And also, it keeps debris and bugs out of your water, but it will not decrease the amount of time it takes to boil 500 millilitres of water with a lid on. This is a popular myth that I'm happy to further explode on this occasion for the viewers, if they've been told that.
Well, I've been told that, so I've learned a lesson there. And Judge, what we had the other week was your windy torch, and Jobby Dodger says windy radio. Oh, radio torches are good too, apart from all the fear-mongering noise it makes. Well, you showed us that wind-up torch, which was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've still got that here, but I thought that the viewers might be fed up of that because I've shown it on 2 different occasions now.
Well, you gave us a flash the other week.
It winds up, which means it never needs any batteries, so you're completely off grid with it. The only thing that could bother it is an EMP, which is, in my view, extremely unlikely.
And you got a point. Thank you, Dave. This is from Hayley B. Such useful info. And we got a call out. I forgot at the beginning of the program. Happy birthday to Town Crier. And those cakes were absolutely delicious. Thank you. So happy birthday.
Cake. Brilliant. Yeah. I like cake.
Had a Town Crier cake, and you could eat the rice paper as well, which said Town Crier. It was pretty good, wasn't it? Very tasty. Now, what's this? Now we got Sean Hamer. Ditto Hadget. I've been saying the same thing for 9 years to people who can't read more than 9 words on idiot phones. Only because it's true. Oh, sorry, I put up one there. I think it's between different people.
Yeah. Interestingly, today, Google announced that they're going to be disabling Gmail, disabling Google Maps, and disabling Gmail and all the other things, and YouTube on older smartphones. This has been announced today. Google are going to remove the service on older smartphones for Maps, for Gmail, for YouTube. So YouTube is a big learning resource for anybody who wants to learn survival or any other subject. So, I'm just letting you know that Google are recognizing the learning potential that YouTube in particular has, and that, other products of theirs have, and they're trying to remove them from the masses. So just get it while it's here. Get on YouTube, learn from all the survivalists that are on there. You can listen to the basics from me. There's people on there with a lot more knowledge than I have. And it's now is the time to learn all this. Now is the time to buy all these dirt cheap items that you will wish you had when it comes to it if you don't. Right?
Spot on.
That's the message I want to get across.
Someone mentioned that you can get a lot of that pot that you just showed. You can probably get it in IKEA, although I'm not a great IKEA fan.
But
you can get quite a few camping items in there, apparently. So
you definitely can. Yeah.
But the IKEA, there are reasons which I won't go into on YouTube because I might get booted off. But
I mean, if anybody thinks you can just use bean cans and things, you are correct. A baked bean can will operate up to a point, but what you have to remember is that the joints are brazed with metal that doesn't last very long when it's repeatedly exposed to fire. And also, if you're going to use it for anything that you're going to eat or drink, you need to burn the inside out on your fire first to remove all the plastic insert that's inside vegetable cans. It's got a plastic insert inside that's highly toxic when it gets exposed to heat. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't want to buy one of these bushcraft pots, right? Because there might be a few quid. I'm just going to use a bean can. Just beware that if you're using a bean can, they're not clean and they don't last forever like these do. And there's a plastic coating inside bean cans, which is toxic when it's exposed to high heat. So burn that out first, and then you're good to go by using your bean can as an improvised container.
That's very good advice. I didn't know that. I suppose the other thing to bring with you is a tin opener, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, tin opener. Well, there's obviously methods to open tins without a tin opener. You know, if you can find any kind of abrasive rock, imagine that this is a full tin of beans, and there's obviously a lip on here, and this in a bean can, obviously. But if you find an abrasive rock, we'll call my hand the abrasive rock, and you just put your full body weight on and grind it like that, right? Once you've ground that lip off, you can turn it upside down and push it through with your finger, and you've removed the lid. You don't need any implements apart from the floor to do that. So that's improvised can opening in an urban survival situation for anybody who's interested.
Now, there's two things that are very interesting here. Going off subject a little bit here, but I think this is of interest to everybody, and that is Sean Hayman said, if you remember the old police bell end helmets they had, this is in the UK, had the Roman centurion's crest, but in moulded felt. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know that at all. So that's a little, yeah. And now we've got here Dan MC. A documentary called Blackout Britain on YouTube shows the downfall of preppers by trusting their neighbours. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's a very good point by Dan MC. You know, obviously I'm all for teamwork and things, but trust must be earned. I do not recommend trusting anybody, right, with any information about where your supplies are, what you've got, what you haven't got. Do not trust any neighbours unless they're like family, unless you've got previous evidence to support them being reliable. Right, it's a very important point that your viewers mentioned again. Trust no one is the go-to rule, but if you get a group together who have all been in it for a long time as a team, you can trust them. But it's right to point out: do not trust the neighbours. You know, if in doubt, eat the neighbours, but don't trust them.
You've got a very good point there. And we've got that is an excellent point. My grandfather, on my father's side, he died before I was born, but he told my father, trust no one. And he'd had a tough life, and he said, trust no one. So, you know, but you've got to rely on sometimes you've got to rely on other people. So I think you're quite right. Trust only the ones that you can really trust and you know are going to help you, you know. So that's why for 2,000 plus years since they changed the date to 0. That's Sean Hamer. Well, actually, I'm not joking. Seriously, this year is not 2021, it's 1721 because they made a mistake with the calculations when they changed the calendars around in the 9th century. It's true. Look it up. Look it up on YouTube. It's on there. This is actually 1721. It's not 2021. So the people going, oh, he's gone bonkers, isn't he? No, look it up. That's actually true. Did you know that, Dave?
I definitely didn't. My specialist subject is what I'm actually talking about. Now, I've learned a bit about history from you, Chris, since I've been speaking to you, and I've learned a lot about history since I've known John. But it's nowhere near my specialist subject, so I'll bow to your superior knowledge on history. I'm not brilliant on it, to be fair.
Well, the thing is that what you've shown us, Dave, I think you're going to save some lives. I really do. And you really are very, very popular when I'm talking to people, you know, on these Sunday meetups. They say, wow. You know? Now we've got here, Hadji, I'm going back at the...
You really do push me and make me
masses.
Very angry.
Just
I
like
mean,
witches at black masses. Oh Lord, yeah. Chris, we're almost there. Yes, we are.
yes, it's not. I would get away from it at all costs, but you know, when you just haven't.
Anyway, I think we've got a cross conversations there somewhere, haven't we, Dave?
Someone's walking past me and started on me with what I was wearing.
Right. So, how do you feel? Shall we wrap this edition up for tonight, Dave, and we go on to another?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what I'm talking about is a vast subject, and even individual elements of the subject of survival, like just water purification, or just fire making, or just shelter building, or just escape and evasion, are all enormously complex and vast subjects. But I'm very grateful for the time that you've allowed us to try and explain the basics of it to people who might benefit from this knowledge. So yeah, you can wrap it up for me, and thank you again to all the viewers, and thanks for the very knowledgeable comments that the viewers have come up with, and some excellent questions. And I'll just apologise to the viewers that maybe haven't got their questions fielded and answered. If I'm lucky enough to be invited back again, I'll endeavour to answer more questions, and we'll maybe devote more time on the next programme to actually answering questions that people have. I've tried to show the survival equipment that a couple of viewers have asked to see, and thanks for tuning in, and good luck to everybody.
Well, thank you, Dave. I'll tell you something else. Talk about water purification. The government announced a couple of days ago that they're going to legislate that they put fluoride in the water.
Yes, this is a very interesting point you've raised, because a long time ago, the area which I'm in said that they wouldn't be fluoridating water because they need the ability to pump water from other areas into a given area. And this would mean that the people who voted in Area A against fluoridation versus people who voted in Area B or C who voted for fluoridation, their rights would be infringed if the water authority pumped fluoridated water into unfluoridated area. Now, the government have recognised this as a problem for them, with the influence of local democracy being involved. So they're circumventing this problem by making a national ruling that all water authorities are able to fluoridate water and must fluoridate it as a matter of law. Now, I spoke about this on the first time I appeared. The Berkey water filter has the white filter blocks as well as the black ones, and the white ones are specifically engineered to remove fluoride, right? And I recommend that if they start putting this shite in your water, wherever you might be, definitely remove it. And it's also worth phoning your water authority if they do this and say, right, you're fluoridating my water without my consent, and I'd like an address to write to send my bill to. I want to send my bill to you for the cost of me removing that fluoride from my drinking water. And you might find that you've got a case to bring a civil action against them for the cost of removal, given the fact that it's a known toxin, and it should be quite an easy legal argument to make.
Well, historically, I don't know if anybody remembers, is it Camelford? I think it was Camelford. It was in Cornwall, where they accidentally poured too much fluoride in the water, and it absolutely it harmed a lot of people. And it was about 30 years ago. The name Camelford comes to mind. I could be wrong on that. If anybody remembers that, but they poured a load of fluoride in the water so people will get an absolute mega dose of it. And it was down in Cornwall. And
yeah, it's utterly disgusting. And the addition of poisons to your tap water is just a blatant ignorance of everybody's human rights. And I encourage everyone to fight this tooth and nail.
I agree with you.
But if you can't avoid them doing it, take measures to remove it. And if you can, build these tyrants for the cost of removing it, because the Berkey fluoride filters are over £100 each. So, you know, claim that money back. If they get enough claims, they might change their mind. You never know.
Well, I hope so. I sincerely hope so, because quite honestly, poisoning the masses is not only that, it calcifies your pineal gland, and it pacifies people. That's why they want to put it in. because they want a passive load of people that's not going to fight them.
I'd just like to say a massive thank you to John Bassiglone. John Bassiglone. He's made a very kind comment about me there. He said, Dave is a credible expert in survival knowledge, and he has been 100% congruent with what I learned in the US Air Force Survival School. So that's a massive feather in my cap, and thank you very much, John.
And hello to America, it would appear.
Hello, America. God only knows I wish I was an American citizen. I'd be sat here with a bag of hand grenades and 2 AK-47s waiting.
There's Aunt Sally. She's actually looking at the wrecking filter. Also removes fluoride for a lot less money than. Oh yeah, well I think it's like
that's correct. Yeah, if you want to get the wrecking filter, then go for it. You know, any brand that you want to get, as long as it does the job, I'm okay with it. As long as I've pointed out the importance of the act of filtering your water, that's all I'm interested in.
Notice of liability on way to Anglian water. Yes, well, water where I live, it tastes as if it's been passed by the local council. The Cat Holdsworth, hello. She's always got very good questions as well as everybody else, Louise and Aunt Sally and that. And thank you very much. They're putting graphene oxide in water supplies too.
Yeah, your Berkey filter or your wrecking filter will also remove that with it being a particulate. It will remove it.
Well, you know, I remember when I was a kid, we had a loft tank and we had a dead pigeon in it, and that sounds a better possibility.
Yeah.
And a dead pigeon and all that crap put in. Now we've got Hayley B before we go, which will be for the next program. Hello, Hayley. Are there any good books? Well, you showed one, didn't you? You recommend in case the next
John Lofty Wiseman SAS Survival Guide all day long. He's the godfather of survival. Everybody knows who he is. And that's it. The SAS Survival Guide by John Lofty Wiseman. Everything is in there.
So it's John Lofty Wiseman, the SAS Survival Guide.
Yeah, he's ex-SAS Chief Survival Instructor. Feel free to argue with that.
That's fantastic. And we got here. I have the. Oh, do you? I have the metal. It costs £156, including a filter that lasts a year. Well, good. And Town Crier. It's all right. I was only joking. I'm not being belittling anything. Town Crier. Thanks, guys. That's excellent. Again, happy birthday to you. And thank you very much for everybody joining us. Now, next week we have Deborah Holdsworth minus her tooth coming on. Dave will be back in the future if that's okay with Dave. Yeah, all right with you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right with that, mate. Yeah.
And we'll have lots of questions, I'm sure. So I'll be on next Sunday. Oh, no, next Thursday. Sorry, on Thursday. I forget myself. I'll be going along with a notebook and pencil and writing down your questions for you. So thank you very much, everybody. And join us here next week. Same time, same place. Remember, whatever happens, have a laugh. Thanks,
yeah,
Dave.
don't forget to buy John Amer's books. He's the reason that I'm here. I wouldn't be here without him, right? So buy John Amer's books. Everyone.
A lot of advice. Thank you very much. I got a lot of advice from John and both and yourself. And buy John Amer's books. And also, Dave, I think you need to write a few books as well. I think that excellent information that you've given. Spot on. And as I say, keep cheerful, and we'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.